what is this?
Well,
You can say what this is, because...
This is the program for this, but we need to be able to see what...
And I feel like
that if
we
you're gonna
ask
offer
often
this.
from staff, and then you guys, I mean, you guys need to know ahead of time that this is what we expect. We're not going to just sit up here and approve stuff without details.
So simply, the question before the council is, does the city council wish to participate in this program to offer a portion of first-time home buyers to potential residents in the community of Hemet, or would the council prefer to not have the county administer that program? If that's really what we have here. We don't have the capacity with our own staff to administer this program and delve down that path and provide this opportunity for residents moving forward. If the council chooses not to do that, then certainly that's a policy level decision that the council can choose to do or not do.
I guess we could say yes, we'd like to participate. How far we extend that is another story with regards
5 years.
to but I mean,
I know
by the time we find the particulars.
I know where you're going with that, because I'm going down that same road.
Yeah.
Is we say yes, we want to participate, and we say we'll do it for 5 years. But here's my question, and I think Bonnie's going the same route: is what if the county comes back with all this red tape and all these strings attached to money that left our city, and how can we circumvent that to be able to really truly offer this to our residents without having some crazy stuff tying up title and that to make it beneficial?
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question for the attorney, Attorney Jax. Would you enter into a program with all the information that we have today if you were sitting in my seat? Sorry to put you on the spot, but it's very factual.
Well, would you like City Manager Lopez to answer the first question, and I can circle back and answer?
Whatever you think.
Well, I think that's a good point that you bring up. Quite frankly, I think this is a newer program, even as it relates to the affordable housing component. I don't know the language in SB2 that relates to the requirements that are spelled out in SB2 with respect to this, or whatever law this is arisen from. And so those programmatic requirements are embedded in some sort of law, and I haven't seen that. And so the question is whether the county has developed those agreements already. I don't know if they have or if they haven't. They haven't made any sort of expenditure with these funds as it stands. The only thing that the county did, and I don't know if individual cities are allowed to request the funding on their own right now, or whether they have to go through the county, but quite frankly, we don't have the staffing. We were not going to have the staffing in the next year to do that. So that's really the question that we have.
So we could say, we could try to, we have time to really look into it, is what I'm really trying to get at. And participating to what extent? I'm not talking years, I'm talking how many transactions could actually take place. So, I'd hate to give up $422,000 for our residents because there's certainly the need is there, and if all we're really doing is agreeing to have the county include the city of Hemet in their application, what harm is that? Well, yeah, okay.
The other alternative too, or the other item in here is that, and it states it in the letter, our ability to leverage the funding because you've got multiple cities now that are requesting that. And that's really what the benefit for the city is. We always talk about doing things differently. We know the issues that came up when it came to some other funding that was made available to individuals for first-time homebuyer assistance and issues that we had to grapple with a few months ago.
Frankly, that was our agreement.
And that was a city-administered program. And so this is an opportunity to have another agency administer it. I believe it's the county EDA that's going to be overseeing it, that has the access and the staffing able to do that. So that's really what it is. Whether the council would like to participate and providing that opportunity to residents moving forward or not.
And I kind of look at this, there's all really good points that are being made here. I kind of look at this as if we decline to participate through the county administration of it, and we know that we don't have the staffing to be able to administer it, you know, Mike makes a good point. This is money that left Hemet that has a chance to come back to Hemet. It's up to the potential participants to avail themselves of those funds and participate in it. So if we decline this opportunity, and I get what you're saying, because it's a pig in a poke, because we don't know what it's going to shape up to be. But if we decline to participate with a county administered program, and we know that we can't administer it, then that's $402,000 that left the city that's not going to have an opportunity to come back. So I think we would be wise to not decline that opportunity, but going forward, once we see how it's going to be administered, we want to be in a position to give good counsel to any potential applicant to look at it closely and make sure it's really something that they want to buy into. Yeah, it's still going to be their decision, but as far as them looking at the terms, that's their responsibility, just like it is all of ours when we go through a 200-page agreement to do a transaction, and most of us don't really read all 200 pages closely when we sign. They can, well, with one exception maybe.
Is that government speak?
No, I'm talking about individuals when you're doing a loan application.
And
Most people will sign on the dotted line with certifying that they've read everything when they really haven't. So I think the educational part comes downstream when the application becomes available, and people need to be cautious about what they tie themselves into.
I just, my point is, I don't think anybody up here wants to decline the money. I don't think that's the point. But if we say yes, it is clear in this that it is a 5-year commit. So
we have an opt-out.
right, and which we don't have an opt-out right now. Right. But is that not a strange thing that they're working on an opt-out already, and it hasn't even started?
Considering if it should be, but it takes 5 years to figure it out.
So
Well,
if
the
we,
opt-out is for the city to be able to administer, to take that administration away from the county, and we can administer.
yeah, so we don't.
So we don't have
Yeah.
a working housing authority. The city of Paris, on the other hand, does, and they may want to look at being able to administer it themselves.
The questions I have is, if we have the same situation, are they going to go to the EDA with their complaints, or are they coming to the city of Hemet? We don't know, right? Yeah.
They'll come to us and then we will refer them to
Through their
Right.
program.
Tom?
Sure, just to answer that question, I appreciate that question. As a personal matter, I would just say more information for me personally, of course, would always be better. The more information you have, the better of an informed decision you can make. Although, as has been mentioned, I think for this decision, it kind of boils down to that there are two choices. Either the city administers this program on its own, and as we have heard, there is not the staffing level to administer. Second choice is to join in this program and allow the county to administer.
So if they are administering, what liability does the city have when we have issues?
Yeah, haven't been asked to study that, haven't been asked to look in and weigh in on that issue. If you would like my office to study that and weigh in on that, we could.
But we got to get a hold of that first.
True. But that's the decision point that you're at. And you may not have the full information that you'd like to have to make that decision, but that's where you as a council are at, as a policy decision.
I mean, has the county told us that we don't have that kind of information? Have we asked?
No, we've not asked. The question was simply, does the city wish to... The question is simply, does the city wish to have the county request the funding and administer the program? And quite frankly, even if we had an agreement we wouldn't be able to develop our own agreement, administer it, and do everything that was allowed under it. So again, it boils down to whether the council would like to allow this opportunity in the city of Hemet.
Doesn't this just boil down to it's the county's program, right? So it's the county's program, we're just able to provide it to our residents now. It's still the county's program. And, yeah, so the county then is responsible for their program.
We wouldn't be able to, again, administer a program that had less red tape or more red tape because we don't have the staffing to do it.
You are missing our point. We don't want the city to do it. We don't want the city to do it. But in order for us to make decisions like this, we need to know what we're agreeing to, and we don't have that information.
And we had some staples. So I for one don't want to give up the $400,000 that may help our residents. So I think that one of the comments that the mayor made was that, you know, it's up to the individual, once all the items are known, to make that decision for themselves. County program, not ours, and we're just the liaison between the two, so. I wouldn't mind moving to approve. But we still want to see.
So what we can do is, if the council would like it, we can ask this department to come and make a presentation if the council wants. No. I'm talking about assuming that if the council approves the program, providing whether it's the red tape, what the program is all about, educate the community and provide some information on that side.
I think
That's something
that's
the council
very
wants.
That would be very good.
Yeah, because educating the people, those first-time home buyers. is
And that we
paramount.
can, that way we get the information too, and then we can,
And we can look at the 30-year mortgage.
yeah, right.
That has to be paid off completely before you sell your property.
Okay, I think we have a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
Mr. James, for the record, I'm going to say no, and I'm not against this program, but I'm tired of staff not providing details. I want that duly noted.
Councilmember Percival?
Yes.
Councilmember Wright? Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much, HP. Moving on to item 16, action items. We have A, B, C, and D. So item 16A, California Fire Code update comparison.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. We're just going to set up the PowerPoint real quick.
Yeah, that's what I have too. On the agenda for then it comes up.
Okay.
Restricted access. Your user profile does not have access to this document. If you require access, please contact me. And now I can't log on to the internet either. So I can't find it either.
Mayor and members of the council, what we have before you tonight is a fire code comparison table that we brought multiple other items before you. On November 12, 2019, City Council adopted an ordinance 2019-1961. This is the California Building Standard Code that it adopted. City Council directed staff to bring a comparison table for review of the changes. The fire code updates made revisions to 3 sections to the model code, and they are premises identification, fire sprinkler requirement in modular and manufactured homes, and prohibition of fireworks. If you'd like, we can go through every word, but basically what this section is, talking about the addressing. The items that are in bold are the changes that we made. Again, this is a small change, just identifying that there needs to be an address number assigned to the building as we proceed. This section does not have the model code because these are all new added sections to the code. And again, it's just trying to delineate the size, the stroke, the color difference between the building and the lighting, building and the number itself. Can't be camouflaged. How it should be illuminated and lit up at night. And the color that we use for the addressing number itself. Again, the size, there's a specific size that we need to have to be consistent for fire department and emergency vehicles to identify the property. And this also goes for multifamily as well. And also within multifamily, there's complex directory that is required. And the placement of the numbers themselves also identifies the shopping center and commercial development. You guys are fully aware that City of Hemet is really hard to find actual building numbers on the building, so this will help that out. And this is, now we're moving on to the fire sprinkler section for modular manufacturing. So effective January 1st, 2011, the State of California requires that fire sprinklers to be installed in all newly constructed residential occupancies, as well as installed and manufactured in modular homes. So what this does is this provides the additional fire sprinkler safety elements to the relocated non-sprinklered units in order to reduce the potential loss of life and property. So the code section, this is added, and it talks about having a fire sprinkler system shall be installed in new manufactured homes and multifamily manufactured homes with 2 units in accordance with Title 25. And we're moving on to the fireworks section. This section deals with the fireworks in 2019 California Fire Code. And the justification here is to reduction of potential personal safety hazards while in possession of fireworks of any kind, reduction of loss to life and property due to enhanced fire threat. So in this section, there actually is a model code. We just modified it slightly that it reads the manufacture, storage, sale, handling, and use of fireworks, including those classified as Division 1.4G. Safe and sane is prohibited. And the exception on 404, that section has been deleted because we're prohibiting fireworks altogether. It is respectfully recommended that City Council discuss the updates and changes from 2019 California Fire Code, update and provide direction to staff to either make amendments or to maintain the adopted code updates effective January 1st, 2020. Also, Fire Chief is here to answer any questions you may have, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, HP. Are there any questions of staff?
On the identification of numbers on buildings, I take it everybody that is current is grandfathered in?
That's correct.
Okay. When does the new application apply to an existing business? Is it maybe when they paint the building and take their numbers down and put them back up? Or are they grandfathered in up until something really major, like destruction of the building, and then they have to come up with something new? When does it all kick in?
Okay. Generally, anytime there's a remodel of a building, changes into facade, things of that type will kick in the changes in number. If you're not doing anything, if you're just repainting, it wouldn't kick in at that time. I have Fire Chief come in and answer additional.
Okay,
that's how it would go.
My only question of when it would kick into the businesses, because sometimes they don't know. And then how are we getting this information out to them to know that if they do any changes to their buildings, that there's new applications?
It'll be part of their tenant improvement or construction plan corrections.
Another idea for the people that have existing buildings, like what Linda was talking about. I wonder if it, not that it would be a requirement, but hey, we just passed this, and for your safety, these are our new recommendations. Kind of just get people to buy in instead of having to come down on them.
Sure.
Because it's helpful for, obviously for responding for emergencies, but it's also helpful for people driving down Florida looking for businesses, right? If they're
Correct.
using right? So I don't know if there's a way to engage businesses without a big hammer, but
Sure, we can discuss some options on staff level, and we'll try to contact and be proactive about the new ordinance.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to see these new additions to the code. From my background as a first responder, I can't tell you how frustrating it is to be responding to an emergency call and have a difficult time finding an address. So I'm sure that Mike would concur with that. It's long overdue, absolutely imperative for public safety, efficient response, and also for the business to be located by potential consumers. So I would even go so far as to say that looking down the road, we might even want to think about maybe making some, not only encouraging them to do that, but throw out a carrot with some CDBG funds to say we will even help facilitate funding of retrofitting so that we get everything on board in our city readily identified. It might be something to think about down the road. So if there's no further questions or comments from staff, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve this as it was presented.
Linda was first on that.
We're going to stay segregated.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Percival?
Yes.
Councilmember Wright?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, that passes unanimously. Item 16B, review interest rates for interfund loan agreement between the Fire Facilities Development Impact Fees Fund and the General Fund/Measure U, and provide direction on whether to cancel the purchase of a fire engine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the June 23rd meeting, Council approved the concept of the interfund loans for the purchase of a fire engine as well as the public safety radio system. It directed staff to return with updated interest rates as well as the cost to cancel the production of the previously approved fire engine. Staff reached out to the manufacturer, KME, and the manufacturer indicated that there would be a cost of $30,000 to cancel the city's order, and this cost would reimburse KME for their staff time spent on all pre-construction meetings and engineering costs associated with this build. In addition, the vendor has indicated that canceling the project will push the potential acquisition of a new engine back by a year to 2 years based on manufacturing lead times, as well as increase the cost of purchase by 4 to 6% due to price increases every manufacturer makes throughout the course of the year. In addition to that, staff researched interest rates and has provided 3 options. I did reach out to the bank that had previously provided the 3% interest rate quote, and they indicated that the new interest rate is 2.75%. I did question why it only decreased by 0.25%, and they indicated that while the Federal Reserve has decreased interest rates, those interest rates affect earnings more than they do loans. Banks are having to maintain their interest rates at a rate close to where they were in order to not go in the red. So in order to not lose money. If council were to choose to go with the bank rate of 2.75, the fire engine loan would cost a total of $62,055 in interest, and the radio system loan would cost $162,384 in interest. The second option was to look at the LAIF quarter-to-date interest rate. The day that this staff report was prepared, that quarter-to-date interest rate was 1.43%, meaning the fire engine loan would cost a total of $31,996 in interest, and the radio system loan would cost $83,725 in interest. The third option would be to use the city investments portfolio average rate of return for May 2020, which is the most recent investment report that we have, and that average rate of return was 1.84%, and that would give the fire engine loan a cost of $41,279 in interest, and the radio system loan a cost of $108,017 in interest for the two loans. So at this time, staff is asking for direction on whether council desires to move forward with those interfund loans or cancel the fire engine purchase and only move forward with the radio system loan, and which option council would like to go with.
Thank you, Lorena. Other questions of staff? Any comments? Well, I think in light of current events and circumstances, I think it's a no-brainer for me to say that we should not cancel the order of the fire apparatus. We're down to no backup reserve engine right now based on recent collision with one engine, and I think that it would be ill-advised to kick the can down the road and spend more money and take another 2 years to get an apparatus delivered that we could use today. So I'm willing to make a motion that we do not opt out of the purchase and that we go forward with the purchase.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go forward with the apparatus purchase.
I'd like some further discussion.
Okay.
And I don't have much to discuss, so I'm going to show you a video, and I'm going to show you this fire was in my district on July 4th. And watch carefully. This fire was responded to by 2 Ford pickup trucks and 1 Chevy Tahoe. And they had to use a neighbor's garden hose to keep it from catching the house on fire because you won't give me back my engine. So we've resorted to garden hoses waiting for the engine to come from another medical aid call out of district. And you're okay with all this? Then do what you must.
Well, I never implied that I was okay with that.
You definitely didn't vote on it either.
And
Well, I guess you did.
so I think that the issue that's before us right now is to go forward with placing an order for fire apparatus.
And I still won't have an engine. So thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you. Thanks to all 4 of you, because nobody stopped it from happening. And nobody was willing to take it on in their district. So when your neighbors catch on fire, this was like down the street from my house. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I don't know exactly what you think I'm going to be telling these constituents when these fires break out, but I will tell them the truth. And I guess it's on YouTube, right?
Any other comments? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
No.
Councilmember Percival?
No.
Councilmember Wright? Yes. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, that motion passes 3-2. Now, on the issue of the funding, any questions of staff on the funding? We have 3 options that were presented.
What does finance recommend?
I believe this is really your call. I would recommend option 2. Taking into account that the interest rate for the fire engine loan is just about the same as it would cost to cancel the order. Since this was done, I've looked at LAIF interest rates and they continue to drop almost daily. So I think it would be safest to take the lowest interest rate loan.
1.43.
Correct.
Option 4, which is not on here, is to continue to pay for it out of Measure U. Correct? That's currently how the council has voted on to pay for the fund the purchase of this is strictly out of Measure U.
On June 23rd, council approved the interfund loans. So I did not put that down as an option.
Well, I thought it was to have a discussion about whether we were going to do an interfund loan.
The loan was approved. It was only the interest rate that was not. And whether or not the engine would continue on with the build or if the order would be canceled.
And thank you. So here's my heartburn on this, right? So we've got Measure U money sitting there. We're going to spend either $224,000 in interest, that's money coming out of Measure U, that could have been used to keep an engine at Station 5. We've got option 2, which takes, what's this, 31,000 and 83,000, so 140,000 out of Measure U to pay for interest to go to another fund, or we have 149,000 coming out of Measure U to pay for interest that goes into another fund. For me, we're taking money out of Measure U that can be used for providing public safety. If we paid for this out of Measure U, it's a one-time expense out of Measure U. We still have reoccurring revenues coming in to replenish, and I know that there's been, with the reduction with COVID and the reduction and everything in the quarantines and all that, we've lost money coming into Measure U. However, we're still getting, based on the numbers that you gave us, we're still getting more than what originally was estimated to go into Measure U before Measure U passed. So the estimates were $10 million. At the last council meeting, you said that was going to be estimated $10.4 million, even with the shutdowns. So that's still more money going into Measure U. I don't think this is the best route to pay for this engine. The engine purchase would be a one-time expense, not an ongoing expense, and we're taking a minimum of $140,000 out of Measure U that could have been used for public safety, boots on the ground. But now we're going to use it to pay for interest.
Well, it seems like we're damned if we do and damned if we don't.
Well, I think it was when.
Guys were taking the whole.
Well, this is what I find, and I know what you're saying, and this is what I find ironic, is that the chair of the Measure U Oversight Committee, who happens to be an automotive dealer who does financing every day, knows that he's going to make money on the financing end being a car dealer, whereas we have to pay that money now, and I don't know if he, you know.
No, it was for taking the bulk of the money out of Measure U.
I know, but there's still more money there, even though if we were to pay cash.
Well,
There's still money in Measure U.
My whole motivation for recommending that approach was to allow us to have a larger fund balance so that we could deal with any unforeseen things that may impact us rather than taking the whole lump out.
Well, and as a taxpayer in Hemet, my intent for Measure U was not to sit on the money. It's to make changes, to make public safety, enhance it, to get the boots on the ground, to make the changes, not just make sure we have a fund balance.
But Mike, we aren't sitting on the money. What I've gotten from all the conversations is that the money will run out in X number of years. And that's
Well,
what we're
it is. It's going to run out in 10 years when Measure U expires.
Well, sooner than that, right?
The fund balance.
That's why it's important that we make sure we do the wise things, because if we don't, the citizens of Hemet are going to not renew it. I mean, we need to have results, and if we don't, then we don't spend the money wisely.
You know, it's the cost of doing business. I mean,
It's also you're leveraging Measure U funding at a relatively low cost
exactly.
to do what we have to do and still maintain enough in those accounts so that public safety can do what they want to do or have to do.
Well, another piece to that is the funds are going back into the DIF. And so we're paying ourselves, so we'll even have a larger revenue bank, if you will, when it gets time to make those improvements.
And I hear exactly what you're saying, because I made that same comment. If we're going to borrow the money, we're better off borrowing it from ourselves. We're better off borrowing it from ourselves. But we have the ability to save the money and pay cash for it.
I want to ask you something. What will it take and how long will it take in order to get Station 5 service?
I want to make it very clear that the closure of Station 5 is a direct result of our current budget situation. I was given very clear direction, and we followed through on that direction based on our fiscal target. We can't afford it. So my job as your fire chief is to determine other options, which I presented to this council. We maintain that fire station open at Fire Station 5. We're dealing with the high-frequency, low-risk call types, EMS. And we still have fire coverage. That fire that Ms. Meyer is referring to, which occurred in the Park Hill area, was a 1-acre fire. Your Hemet Fire Department was on scene first. In fact, our Engine 1 was on scene before CAL FIRE. Our battalion chief assumed command. That fire was held to less than 3 acres with no damage to structures. We respond to those types of calls each and every day. We respond together, collectively. It's not one station. It's the entire system as a whole. We're a small department. We rely on mutual aid, partnership, and that is how we're successful in our day-to-day ability to respond to the many calls that we go on. And if I may add one other quick comment. And I've been, I think, very good in keeping my powder dry, if you will. Right now, Engine 1 is out of service. Engine 2 is out of service. Engine 3 is out of service. Engine 5, which was taken out of service and serving as a primary relief, is in service as Engine 3. We have a relief engine also covering Engine 1 now. Engine 1 was involved in an accident. That was a relief engine. I've given direction to take that out of service until further notice. That engine has a trans retarder. It's a secondary braking system that's been out of service for several years. Council, as I stood before you the first day I was here and I hung the turnout gear that was ripped and torn, helmets that were cracked, and radios that didn't work, I asked of you, I need your help. Our firefighters deserve nothing less than the best equipment we can purchase. And the equipment we do have, we maintain at a high state of readiness. So any more delays, respectfully, we've been talking about this for over a year. We've responded to your request. We've adapted to everything you've asked us to do. And I'm asking for your help as your fire chief to provide our firefighters the tool they need. In this case, we need a brand new engine. I can't keep the wheels on the units we have now. They're old, they're tired. I updated the mileage. Engine 1 has, in addition to the trans-axle issue, has ongoing electrical issues, the pump panel's not working. I have a list of all this with all their inventory. And, sorry, I didn't mean to ramble.
And so because of that, if we opted to do the financing, that would free up the other money to be used for the other things that desperately need to be done.
And thank you for bringing that up. December 10th, one of my concerns that I voiced to this council was we have many other things that we need to deal with. And so to the mayor's comments about leveraging the money, we do have a limited finite pool of Measure U funds. And I'm looking at the next fiscal year to ensure we hit our targets as available. As all of you know, the pandemic has just kicked up again. I don't know what that looks like. We've had discussions with additional budget cuts. So we're running lean, and I'm asking for your help to give us the tools that we need so we can get our firefighters the right equipment.
I'll make a motion for option 2.
Okay, we have a motion to fund through option 2 interest rate. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
If we replay what I said, the video I showed you, that was from the 4th of July, but he gave another good example. And no.
Councilmember Percival?
No.
Councilmember Wright?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, the motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 16C, ratify Hemet's temporary outdoor dining program. City manager's action allowing the temporary use of parking lot spaces associated with restaurants to be used for the placement of tables and chairs for outdoor dining under the authority provided in the Hemet Municipal Code Section 26.6 and waive any permits and fees, Hemet fees, to allow restaurants to temporarily operate outside seating and service for customers in portions of their parking lots in compliance with the governor's guidelines and orders. We have a report from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we have before you is due to the closures that happen frequently, often, we really looked at how we could allow our restaurants to continue in business and continue operating, knowing that limitations were being placed on indoor dining. And so in discussions with a couple of our restaurants a couple weeks now, we developed an idea that we'd be able to allow outdoor dining at some of our restaurants, contingent upon having a property owner approval. Typically, this would go through a special temporary use permit process that does have a fee along with it. We've developed the concept of having a quicker process, providing some information that's relevant to the city, including some safety information to make sure that cars aren't coming near to restaurant patrons, and also just some other questions that we would be interested in. And we also request that any fees be waived and that we don't charge any fees. This would be temporary, subject to Community Development Director approval, I think initially for about 30 days. And then we would be able to extend it given any sort of additional closures that come through, or if closures continue on into the future. We've had some pretty good responses from our local restaurants and our business owners that are interested in this. And based on the authority provided under 26-6, we've already accepted applications and are getting restaurants on their process to allow for outdoor dining throughout our community. Again, this is really to allow our businesses to continue operating and to give them some opportunity in today's climate to allow them to continue to operate. And that's all that I have. I want to thank HP as well as our attorney's office in looking at the opportunity and providing input on really making this happen for our community. So that's all I have, Mayor. Happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Chris, any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. I own a restaurant, and I want to offer outdoor dining. If I don't come to the city and fill out an application and get a permit, I appreciate that it doesn't cost anything. What's going to happen to me?
It's a very good question. The reason why we've done this process is because we want to make sure that we're protecting the public health and safety. And so we want to make sure that businesses aren't doing things that are inappropriate. And so really, my direction to the staff has been we want to make this happen with our businesses. And so we are very welcoming when it comes to this specific program. And so we're willing to work with restaurants to make this happen. We aren't particularly going out and looking for violators, if you will. But if there are issues related to building and safety with respect to not going through this process that we can visually see, then there may be some potential ramifications as a result of that.
And so the reason why I asked this question is because here's my concern, is that you and I have had conversations about permitting process. We had a couple folks come in tonight to complain about the length of time it takes to get a permit for whatever job they want to get done in the city. My concern is that our businesses are already being put through the ringer by the state of California and by the county of Riverside. Why do we want to add another layer of bureaucracy for them to have to come down to the city when they're trying to operate their business in compliance with health official orders and state orders? Why do we need to add in more for them to have to try to navigate through?
So again, really to protect the public health and safety. So we don't want individuals putting up 50 by 50 scaffolding with big pieces of equipment out there without us seeing that.
And I get what you're saying, but let's be real. The fact of the matter is that our businesses are struggling already. They're not going to spend all this extra money to have to erect scaffolding and all this stuff that they just don't have the money. They're trying to pay their rent, they're trying to pay their employees, they're trying to feed their kids, and they're trying to keep their businesses open.
So as it stands, the Muni Code requires a different set of process as well as a fee associated with this. What we're doing, and the feedback that we've gotten has been overwhelmingly positive and appreciative, is going through this process and allowing us to permit it and just giving us giving the okay that all is well. I haven't had a business complain to me with respect to this process at all. To the contrary, the businesses that we have met have been extremely appreciative of this opportunity. Going through the process as it stands in the Muni Code would require fees, would require a different process. What we've done here is expedited that process to get our businesses back open and allowing this to happen. So although that may be a point that you have, we haven't heard that at all from businesses or the restaurants that have asked about this program.
How many permits have you issued?
HP?
We haven't issued any permits just yet, but we did get about 4 applications in place. What we're waiting for is just the property owner's permission. We don't want them to set up anything, tables, chairs, and so on somebody else's property without their permission. So we're asking either the property owners or the property management to just sign off. If they're not available, then we are accepting faxes or emails until we get...
So everything can be done online?
Absolutely.
Well, I, along with Michael here, have a real problem with our permit process. I've had a couple of phone calls myself this week and last week, and I hope that whatever we do, and I thank you for thinking outside the box, number one, but I would hate to think that a new program would even delay other permits that have been waiting forever to get approved. So I applaud you for getting this program started, and how are you getting the word out to the businesses?
So we didn't want to go too far without having this conversation with the council. Once the council provides direction on whether it's something that they would like to do or not, we develop our own communication. We'll put it up on social media. I've actually already talked to the Chamber of Commerce and let them know that this was coming, and so they're well aware of that too, and they were excited about the opportunity as well.
If I may add something, most of the restaurant owners are just placing an easy-up style shelter and tables.
Right.
So only division that would look at this application would be the planning. So they wouldn't need to go through building. It would just be planning. It'll probably take about a day to go through the process.
I would think that, and I understand the concerns that have been shared, and I don't totally disagree with that, but I think that just to be cautious that we don't end up in a situation where some outdoor dining is set up on property that's not accessible to them to use, like a neighboring business's property, could have a conflict, civil dispute arising where, well, you set tables up on my property and you get it on your property, so it gives us an opportunity to perhaps head off any conflicts like that. Also making sure that we don't end up in a situation where they're putting them up in public right-of-way that could create a hazard. And we talked earlier this evening about being proactive, and I think we want to make sure that we don't, if it's just do whatever you want, no permit and review process involved, you could end up with a situation where you have easy-ups being placed partially in the public right-of-way that could cause a hazard. Then we end up with a problem. So I think having some level of review is prudent, just from a risk management perspective.
I think that this is a great idea, and I'm glad to see that you guys came up with this. I mean, before us having to ask, before somebody having to ask. I was glad to see. My biggest concern, and the first thing that I thought of was like the outdoor farmers market. Remember that beach city that had 10 deaths because a car went through an unbarriered area. So that was and I see on here, obviously, that you have your water-filled K-rails or equivalent. I know there are restaurants that don't have that up, and I don't know if it says on here the 36-inch rule. I mean, I don't even know if like vehicles would be a possibility if the employees, but then they're taking on their own liability. But I absolutely understand that we need a process, because if we are going to allow it, then we will be held accountable. So 10 deaths because of an accident at an outdoor restaurant that we is, just as bad as 28 COVID deaths in Hemet, whatever our number is today. So taking all that seriously, like it doesn't, in the name of pandemic, we can't make this kind of a death okay, and when, you know what I'm saying. So my concern is, how are these businesses going to get water-filled K-rails? I think those are kind of expensive.
I think those are just ideas that we put out there. Again, the big thing that what we've told businesses is we want to work with them, and if they've got ideas, let's see how we can make it work. And so that was an example, but I don't know if HP has communicated with any restaurants and some of the options that they put forward, but we want to work with businesses.
Because I've seen like yellow caution tape, and that definitely won't stop a car. And that's, it's one thing if they're up on a sidewalk, right? But then some of these places don't have sidewalks that are that large, and so then I see them coming out onto into the driving area. So if they're in a parking place where cars go, then it just presents another liability for us to So
Chris, she made a good point, but like, let's bring up Harvard. If we restricted parking of any kind on the street, and they would have to use the parking lots. Would that be, I mean, I don't see how we can have people going down the street unless we shut the street off, and they can use the public parking instead.
That's a different conversation when you're talking about streets, and it's something that we can explore and go back as to what that might mean. But this is more of the immediate side of getting people opened up for business on parking lot areas. But it's something that we can certainly explore.
Yeah, and that was my first reaction, was the safety of sitting down eating your pasta dinner and get hit by a car. Not a good thing. But I also thought about just what Carly had said, that could the area be sequestered by other parked cars? I mean, their employees could park their cars in a square and put the tables inside that. Or, I mean, something that doesn't cost the businesses any additional money to come up with this on short term, because that Waterfield K-Rail may not be real expensive, but then again, it's another cost that our businesses don't need to do. But I do have a question on the use of sidewalks, because down on Harvard Street, we do allow some tables out for both of the restaurants that are there. And I'm thinking of just a couple mom and pops that are in shopping centers that have parking lots access. But they also have real wide sidewalks. And so long as somebody can go through with a wheelchair, that's considered not blocking, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good, because I have a restaurant in mind that could do this, and I could go eat. So it's strictly selfish on my part, but yeah, we're just starting to come back, and then boom, they got hit again, and now they've got a supply of inventory that they're going to end up, excuse the expression, eating financially. But if something like this, if they could do on the sidewalk, and then they'd even take their tables and chairs back in at night. But it would give them the opportunity to at least pay their bills. So thank you for this. I appreciate the fact that it is thinking outside the box, and that we are considering all of our good eating places in town.
I can appreciate your selfishness, because I have 2 points I'd like to make. We're inserting ourselves into an arena that is now could have potential liability on the city. Carly made a good point. If somebody were to get hit and then they come back and say, well, the city approved us. And then it comes, now my point with dealing with selfishness is that I don't think that while we want everybody to be safe, and I think that sometimes we don't think that people are selfish with their safety, and they're going to do what keeps them safe without us up here telling them what's going to keep them safe. I just had an experience this week. My wife and I went out and had dinner at one of our local restaurants, and we sat outside. They had a few parking spots blocked off with cones that I knew would not stop a car because it's a yellow little orange cone. However, we did sit in a spot that was behind a pillar. So, the waitress said, would you like to sit here? And I said, no, we'll sit at this table. Because it's selfishness. I want to make sure that I'm safe and my wife is safe. And I think the point that I'm making with that is I didn't need a government entity to tell me how to be safe. And I think that I want to give our constituents and our residents of Hemet a little bit more and know that they can do what it takes to keep themselves safe without the city having to interject into everything. It goes back to, I think, that the United States and California specifically has become so over-regulated on everything. This is another regulation. While I appreciate the thought that's put in to all of this is that I think that we need to just stop and let our businesses, when they call and say, hey, what do I need to do?